Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Claire Robinson. I'm the Customer Relationship Manager here at KRC. I want to welcome one of our training partners, Hemsley Fraser, and some of their customers, and all of our regular webinar listeners who will no doubt have been wondering where we've been for the last few months. I'm sure that after today it will all become clear just what Keith has been busy doing. So today's webinar is all about PRINCE2 Agile, and we have Keith Richards, who is the lead author, to tell us all about PRINCE2 Agile, which will form a new training course and qualification due for release in spring 2015. The slides from today's webinar will be available from our website. Go to AgileKRC.com, click on the Resources tab, then click on Free Downloads. While you're in the resources section of the website, you might want to check out the webinars page where you can access our webinar archive. You can also find all of our webinars on our YouTube channel. Just search for AgileKRC. The hashtag for today's webinar is PRINCE2 Agile. If you'd like to hear more from Keith, then you can check out his blog at AgileKRC.com/blog. I'd like to point out a few features of the control panel just in case this is your first time using the software. So if you look at the top right hand side of your screen, you'll see an orange box with a white arrow. Click on this to maximize or minimize your control panel. If you'd like to ask a question, just type your question into the question box and Keith will take as many as he can at the end. If you're watching this webinar live, you should be able to see Keith's webcam just now. And if you're watching a recording of this, then you won't be able to see him. You do have control of how big or small you want to make Keith on your screen, so just click and drag the double lines till you're happy with how this looks. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you over to your presenter, Keith Richards.
Thank you very much, Claire, and welcome everybody again to another webinar. We get great feedback on the webinars. Just been to the Agile Business Conference and so many people came up to the stand and said how much they enjoyed the webinars. So we really appreciate that. We've had a few people writing in and saying they watch it with groups and such like, and we only had one a couple of days ago. This is absolutely fine by us. The more the merrier. I think there's a big bunch in Swansea, so croeso to you guys over in South Wales. In terms of name checks, we've got quite a wide variety, all the way from Canada, America, all the way across. A lot of people from South Africa today, and also all the way over to Australia. I know that it's funny times of night, but people are actually on, and that's quite a nice thing to see. And we've also a couple of people we don't see very often. We've got some people from Israel, and we've got some people from Belarus today, so welcome to those people. Right, the way we start these webinars is with the survey that you filled in when you actually logged on to the webinar. And the question was, how easy do you think it is to integrate Agile with PRINCE2? Now, there were sort of 5 categories. The one that was I don't know was actually 23%. So I've had a quarter of the people on the webinar who don't know, so I guess that's why you're on the webinar. Seems reasonable to me. In terms of those who thought it was very easy, there was actually 7%. Now that's quite a high figure, and that's quite impressive. And actually, some of our customers were voting into that category, which is quite good. In terms of reasonably easy, actually the biggest score was 39%. Now that's quite interesting because if it's easy, then maybe you don't need a new product. But let's just delve a little bit further into this and see where we go. 28% said reasonably difficult, and about 3% said very difficult. And again, we're a very interesting spectrum from people because I guess it depends where you are, what your experiences are. But I was expecting more emphasis on the fact it will be difficult, but I think that's quite an even spread. And if you like, more people are saying reasonably sort of easier than harder. So which is good news because it's not like trying to mix, if you like, oil and water. Right, so let's have a go into the webinar and go through some stuff. We're going to start off with just a little bit of basics, not too much though, and going to try and get to some of the more edgy stuff as quickly as possible. So where we're going to talk about combining PRINCE2 and Agile. Seems reasonable because that's what the webinar's about. We're going to talk about perceptions because I think that's very important, and you know, how you might combine them. but also the triangles. You often see lots and lots of triangles on these project management courses, and I'm going to talk about triangles, and it's going to be a very interesting, hopefully you're going to find that interesting, because this is some of the new stuff that's come out from the team that have been building this. And we'll finish at the end with some questions, so make sure you've got some questions at the end. We normally leave about 10 minutes at the end for questions. Okay, so let's get going. I'll go quickly on this slide, but I just want you to be aware of where I'm coming from and my experiences. KRC, we like to be a bit pioneering, we like to be a bit different, and we've actually been saying you can combine Prince with Agile since about 2005. And I remember when I was first saying that, I was considered to be a bit of a bit weird or a bit unusual, but it's now a question of how, as opposed to a question of if. KRC specialise in anything you want to do with Agile. You can see some of the stuff on the screen there, anything from SAFe all the way through to PRINCE2 Agile, Scrum, you name it, we do it in terms of Agile. Now, there's an underline there, as Claire's just said, lead author for the new PRINCE2 Agile product, and very flattered and sort of proud to be asked to do that. And it's been an amazingly hard piece of work, and this is where, thanks to the team who've worked on it as well, it's been a brilliant piece of work. I was also lead author for DSDM in 2007, and I think to be lead author once is a bit careless, but to do it twice, there's obviously some sort of, I don't know, what do they call it, gluttony for punishment. So let's move on and let's get going with some of the actual details. So why actually combine Prince and Agile? Well, the reason why this product's come about is actually due to demand. It's not somebody sitting there thinking, what can we do for a new product, or what can we do for a new book. Axelos, who are the company that are sorting this out, and I'll tell you more about those in a minute, they just got this demand coming from their training companies, from the practitioners and such like, but mainly the practitioners, the people in the Prince2 community, saying we need some guidance, we need some, we need to know how to do this, because it's just becoming more and more sort of common. Another reason for doing this is it's already being done. It's not as if this is new. People are doing it, and they're doing it in different ways. So a way of establishing, if you like, a best practice. And the point being is, can we take some of the Prince2 stuff and join it with the Agile stuff, and if you like, 1 + 1 = 3, we can get something greater than the sum of the parts. So to try to get the best of both worlds. And one of the big drivers for this is that as Agile's come of age, and the word was invented in terms of methodology sort of style back in 2001. Well, that's 14 years ago, and what was happening then with IT, a little bit of a backlog and a to-do list, and off we go. It's now gone mainstream. Every organisation's looking at it. You've got some very impressive Agile rollouts at places like in the UK government, some very successful use of Agile going on at the moment, and when when government, public sector are getting it and it's becoming the norm, that it's gone well past critical mass. It's no longer a sort of niche. So what are the advantages of Prince2? And I just want to be clear on a few things about Prince2, because I'm not sure how widely known it is. It is international. It does cover, it goes around the whole world. Bit more emphasis on other bodies of knowledge, if you like, in terms of, say, the States. It's not the international standard that everyone uses, because there are about sort of 2 or 3 main ones. But it is actually the most practiced method globally. That's only Prince2 can make that claim, and 1 million people have taken exams in Prince2. So this isn't just a few people do it. There's a massive body of knowledge, and this is quite relevant to later on. It's been done in 21 languages, 120 countries, so to give you some idea of this sort of global power of what Prince2 is. And it focuses, in terms of a project context, on governance, on sort of project direction and project management. So those are the things it's focusing on. And now we come to the first thing when you're mixing Agile with Prince2 is what I call a sort of dirty word. A lot of people, when they see the word control, certainly from the Agile community, and I don't want to broad brush this and say that everybody sees it in a negative context, but this word control is something that a lot of people from Agile, they don't like. Now, we've got a very big team working on this, and we've got a massive spectrum of views from dyed-in-the-wool Prince2 to very extreme Agile, and if you drew a Venn diagram and saw the intersection where everyone agreed, you'd actually have nobody in it, not even close. And a lot of the feedback we're getting is about this word control, as in it isn't what the Agile community wants to hear. But then we're hearing a lot of people from other areas on the team saying, actually, no, it is what they want to hear. Now we'll come back to that in a moment, but it's a very big area, this word control, and I'll show you about that in a minute. I'll show you more. Importantly, PRINCE2 is any project, anywhere. So let's be very clear from the start. This is not just an IT thing. IT, if you like, Agile's heritage is in IT, but this is any project, anywhere. Now here's one of the big learning points that I'm hoping is going to be immediately make people think, oh crikey, that's interesting, because it certainly made me feel, crikey, that's interesting. And the fact is, PRINCE2 is already Agile enabled. Now I've trained and worked with Prince since about 2002, and out there's normally sort of two sets of PRINCE2 people, those that had the red book and those that had the sort of greeny bluey book. Now I spent most of my time with the red book, and I thought Prince was excellent. I really liked it, and I knew there was a couple of, if you like, not quite glitches, but limitations and little bits where you had to bend it and just twist it to suit the situation, particularly with Agile. But the team in 2009, when they did the rewrite of PRINCE2, stripped all that out and made it a very level playing field. And talking to the lead author of the 2009 PRINCE2 initiative, which is Andy Murray, another famous name, he said that they wanted to put the plumbing in so anything could fit with it. So Agile, if you like, they knew Agile existed, and they created PRINCE2 in a way that and the word, I don't know how this translates to other languages on the webinar here, but the plumbing, the foundations, the infrastructure was there to enable Agile. So big learning point here, nothing in PRINCE2 needs to change to get it to be Agile. You don't need to switch anything off or read between the lines on that one. The whole of PRINCE2, and I'm talking the 2009 edition, is Agile enabled. It's a question of just adjusting and tailoring what's there as opposed to switching things off. There's nothing in it that needs to be removed. Now in PRINCE2 2009 edition, there was something, the final chapter, or one of the end chapters, was called, I think it was chapter 17, was called tailoring. And this was the big thing about trying to apply it to any situation. And if you like, this is what was missing in the earlier guidance from PRINCE2. And this whole point of tailoring and this idea that it's already Agile enabled is how that there's no surgery required here to get PRINCE2 to be Agile. But these two bottom points are really important. And if anyone says PRINCE2 is not Agile, well, I'm afraid I would disagree. So I just want to run a poll now, because I just want to check, I've said a few things there, but I just want to check the people listening and the level we've got here about your view of PRINCE2. So I'm going to run a poll, and I just want to get your opinion on what of these sort of statements, in your opinion, and those that are regulars will know that whenever we go to a poll, it's very exciting as to whether we ever come back from it. But I'm going to give you a few minutes there. You can vote for as many as you want, but don't vote for all four, because I don't think that quite would make sense, to be honest. So let's have a look and see the votes. And so lots and lots of things are coming in, which is good. About a third of people have voted so far. These polls are good because they give me a chance to have a drink of water. Very interesting. Just give you another 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Well, the results are interesting, so I can't wait to give them to you. I just hope that we don't disappear. And the results should be coming up on your screen very shortly. So there you are. Have a look at the results there, and let's go through them. So, a slightly unusual poll in the sense there's 4 options, and one option down the bottom is completely different to the other 3. But I do find the scores really are quite phenomenal, to be honest. 50% of people listening think it's bureaucratic and document driven. 33%, that's a third of you, think it's waterfall. But remember, we're talking perception here, and if that's your perception, that is your perception. And nearly 60% command and control. And there's a very small community down there on 15% who think it's none of the above. Right, now just hold those thoughts and we'll go through the slides and see what you think, because I'm not saying you're wrong, if you like, but the truth might surprise you. So I will get back on with the slides now, but I think the scores there are pretty phenomenal. So let me just see if I can get going. Are we all back? Actually, I just need to check something here. Claire, can you hear me? Are we okay for... Can we see the slides?
Can't see the slides at the moment, Keith.
Right. Why would that be? Let me just do that. Just hang with me, everybody. We're just trying to work out what's going on. Are you still there, Claire?
I am. Yep, they're back up.
Right.
You can see all of your slides though at the moment.
Which is good for you guys, because I can't see anything at all. Let me just click on this button and we should be
It's nice
okay.
to be back, isn't it, Keith?
We get so much feedback on the fact people love these bits. You've got no idea we're in panic mode. So let's keep going. Thanks, Claire. You've been a complete start as normal. So what are the perceptions and disadvantages of PRINCE2? Well, here's the punchline. There aren't any, okay? Bit controversial, and I'll explain where we're going in a moment, but really there aren't if used in the right way at the right time. And the simple thing is, it doesn't matter whether you're using Scrum, PRINCE2, DSGM, Kanban, it doesn't matter what you're using, they're all actually okay. It's just how you use them and whether you use them in the right way. Now here's the big thing. A lot of people see PRINCE2 as what's called traditional project management. And since working with the team on this, and I particularly do want to give a name check to Andy Murray here, because some of the guidance he's been giving has been fantastic from the PRINCE2 team, is the guidance actually says the complete opposite. So this idea of bureaucratic and document driven, there's so much guidance in the actual PRINCE2 2009 version about tailoring. You don't need to make everything a document. You know, it actually says that. So it's not that people misread it or you've got to read between the lines. It actually says the complete opposite. You do not need to write everything down as a document. Now let me give you an example. If you sort of create a PID, a project, the project initiation documentation, you know, that could be on a wall. It could be a big visible chart. It doesn't have to be 20 pages of sort of A4. In terms of waterfall, there's nothing in PRINCE2 that talks about doing things in what are called technical stages. It refers to technical stages, but it tells you to put them inside management stages. So the biggest, if you like, stage in terms of demarcation or section of a project is actually a management stage. It is not a technical stage. And it's very clear about not letting anything like technical stages, don't let the sort of tail wag the dog, don't let them drive things. It's very much about just management stages. You could put time boxes in there, you could put the analysis phase in there, you can do whatever you want. But Prince doesn't say anything about doing things in a waterfall way. And the big one, and to score 60%, you know, we've got hundreds of people on this webinar and 60% are saying, my perception is command and control. Well, the word command isn't in there, but the word control is. Now, I think actually the opposite is the case. I think if you do PRINCE2 correctly, and we'll talk about things like management by exception later, you can create an environment that gives control and actually gives control down and delegates down, so you're empowering people. So, in fact, it's the opposite of command and control. Now, quick quiz question for you, because we know some people like the quizzes. So if you've got a chat box or a question box there, you can fire an answer over to Claire. But what is the film that still is taken from? Because a fantastic scene. I don't know how many of you have seen it. There is some rude language in it, so I wouldn't necessarily watch it with the family. but a brilliant piece of cinema. But do you happen to know what the... Oh, crikey, so many people are getting it. I didn't think it was that easy. All right, well done. Moving on. Just a quick example of prejudice for you. I'm talking about my own experiences. Going back to the 70s, I remember watching a couple of fantastic films, sort of landmark films, Saturday Night Fever and Grease, and it starred an actor called John Travolta. And I remember when the news came out that he was going to appear in a Quentin Tarantino film called Pulp Fiction. I just remember saying, this will not work, it can't work. And I was certain of it, and I didn't even go to see the film because I just knew it would be a waste of time. And the fact is, he was brilliant, and it is probably one of my favourite films. But the point being that it was just prejudice. It was just, you know, you got a perception of something, and time's moved on. The bottom line is, he's a great actor. But it's up to your own taste, I guess, but he's a great actor, and therefore he can adapt to the conditions. And I would say the same is with PRINCE2. So be careful of this prejudice. There's actually nothing wrong with it. There might be some bad implementations of it. You might have had some bad experiences with it. But certainly looking through the 2009 PRINCE2 manual, there's nothing in there that says command and control, that says waterfall, that says bureaucracy, that says do shed loads of work up front. In fact, it says the opposite. Again, upfront work, it just says do a little and try and stop as quickly as you can to see whether the project's sort of got any legs. So what's the upside from sort of Agile then when we're mixing these two things together? Well, it's very much state of the art. Everybody's talking Agile, everybody's doing Agile. We need to be on time. I think the world's changed, and in the last 10, 20 years, and it's changing all the time. Therefore, this is why Agile's come about, and this is what Agile's good at. The idea of what's called batching and small batches. Get your work as small as possible so that it can get through the pipeline. We're not task switching, you know, epitomized by things like Kanban, if you like, and you know, lean and the idea of flow. These are all the things that are just coming into play. The idea of a 2-year project, you know, it's very unusual nowadays. The idea of being responsive, this thing about feedback, and this is what we're building into PRINCE2 Agile, things about how to get fast feedback and such like, because this is where Agile is really, really good, because things are changing quite dramatically and quite quickly out there in the marketplace. Last weekend I was just lying in bed listening to the news on the radio, and in the UK we have there's a big takeover that's been thought about between British Telecom and O2, and O2 is a very big mobile provider here, and British Telecom is the old used to be state-owned. And I think it was about 8 or 9 years ago, British Telecom sold O2. They didn't want it, and now they want to buy the things back. And what sort of learning points came out from just listening to this news article was the fact that something like WhatsApp has just blown the SMS market to pieces. You know, we can all text each other for free now, and this is just a big game changer. And things like Skype is actually taking up 25% of international calls now. And of course, you know, they're more, you know, they're free if you're doing that. Now, when you've got things like this happening, you've got to be quick and you've got to be fleet of foot. But I've got to stress, you know, really importantly, I'm not just talking here about IT. This applies to any, if you've got a new insurance product for pets or something, or and some of our customers build submarines, they make Mars bars. This is not IT stuff, but we've got to move quick and we've got to be fleet of foot. The game's changing very quickly, and this is where we need Agile. So it's not just an IT thing, but we've got to get the Agile stuff into the Prince stuff to get the best of both worlds. So what are the disadvantages with Agile? Well, one of the things that's come out from all the work with the team, and we've got nearly 30 people on the team, is when you ask them what is Agile, you get 31 different answers. And this is a problem if you're trying to go Agile and everyone thinks it's different. You know, this can create a bit of an issue. 95 to 99% of what you read and what you hear is about business as usual. It's not about a project. Now, some of these things go across quite easily, but some don't. And this is where it's a problem. And when we just say you start with a backlog or we get in a room, it's okay to say that, but in a project context, that's a lot harder. Some IT concepts, and remember, Agile's heritage is in IT. Some of it don't actually translate and come across. So something like automated testing, you know, continuous integration. Again, I'm not saying don't do this in other walks, in other sort of areas, but some of it doesn't quite go over, and therefore you've got to be very careful when you're using something like PRINCE2, which is a lot more generic. And again, another problem with the Agile thinking is a lot of people think it's what I call binary, namely you're either doing Agile or you're not. So one big piece of advice I give everyone here is the fact that it's just not binary. It's always by degree. You're never doing all Agile or no Agile or all waterfall or no waterfall. It's always about degree. It's about how much Agile. And we talk about something called the Agileometer, where there's a degree of how much Agile you're actually using. But again, other things like self-organization, people think that Agile is about self-organizing, and I'm a great fan of self-organization, but in a project context, you've got to be a bit careful. And people who just say it's a mindset and it's an attitude, I sort of agree, but it's not just an attitude. There's bigger things. What are the techniques? What are the processes? How do we do this? So one of the problems with Agile was mixing it all together with PRINCE2, because there were so many different definitions of what Agile actually turned out to be. So how do they go together? Well, the regulars on the webinar will know that I'm not really into cake, but I'm always talking about cakes, especially when we're talking about project management. And on the right-hand side, you see a lovely wedding cake there with the 3 layers. And if you think of those as the top layer being governance and direction, if you think about the middle layer being project management, and you think about the bottom layer being to do with the delivery side, this is what a project is. So we're not in BAU land at the moment. We're not, hey, we've got a product and we've got a backlog. Somebody's got an idea. It might be to develop a new product or refine a product or whatever. But this is where we've got to play to these strengths. So I want to go careful here because I'm gonna caveat what I'm about to say. But the first thing is play to the strengths of the the respective approaches. So PRINCE2 in the top 2 layers and Agile down there in the bottom layer. But here's the important thing. You need to blend them together. So if you look at that cake there, all the ingredients are probably the same. It's just they've sort of separated it out into the 3 levels. Don't stick delivery underneath project management. That is just a really bad thing to do. You need to blend them together. And what you need to do, if you look at that delivery area of the cake, you need to move the stuff that's Agile up, like behaviors, the idea of playing with features, things like that need to go up the cake, but control needs to come down, if you like, from the higher levels of the cake. But I'll explain a little bit about this control thing in a moment. But the key words are things like blend, mix. It isn't a question of parallel universes. So this is really important. So what is in PRINCE2 Agile? Well, first things first, it's an extension to PRINCE2. So we don't start off with Agile and think how we put Prince into it. We're starting with Prince, and we're trying to bring other areas in. And these areas from Agile are quite wide and quite varied. So you might have things like some of the Agile behaviors, like self-organization, and some of the really, I think, quite powerful stuff like honesty, transparency. We talk about those in the PRINCE2 Agile product. Now that's not to say that PRINCE2 is dishonest. It's just there's none of these quite powerful behaviors that are in there at the moment. So this is, if you like, additional stuff. The Agile approaches, and it doesn't matter whether it's Scrum, Kanban, whatever. These Agile approaches, they're coming into it as well. We're not saying you can put it in here if you want. They're actually in PRINCE2 Agile. We show you where they fit and we show you what they do, and that's one of the things about incorporating existing Agile approaches. Some of the Agile fundamentals, the idea of if you like, playing with the features, the idea of collaborative teams, open communication, that sort of stuff. These are fundamentals, and there's certain areas of focus that Agile really goes after. So things like communication, requirements, risk, if you like, the appropriateness of actually using Agile, because it comes with its own set of risks. It de-risks a lot of things, as in it's safer to use Agile than, say, traditional approaches. And remember, Prince isn't a traditional approach per se. And then the final sort of cloud there in terms of the sort of pink and fluffy Agile is the idea of techniques, everything from story points to stand-up meetings. And remember, Agile's moving on. Story points, I'm not saying the jury's out on story points, but there's a lot of people now saying, hang on, I think we need to move on here. I'm not saying they've had their time, but again, in the PRINCE2 Agile guidance, we say when to use story points and when not to, when they actually might get in the way, because a lot depends on the inherent uncertainty of what you're actually working on. Again, this is incorporated into PRINCE2 Agile. Now, I'm going to try and give you a couple of specific examples here, just so that you get a feel for what's actually in the new product. And one area of quite a lot of focus is actually this thing called management by exception. A lot of the Agile community we talk to, not particularly mad on the concept, as in it almost seems like dereliction of duty, but actually this is the real powerhouse of combining PRINCE2 with Agile. And a lot of you, 59% said command and control, but actually this is empower and control. So if you can set some boundaries and some tolerances, as they're called in PRINCE2, you can then empower a team, a delivery team, a project manager, and you can just say, look, here's your remit, organize yourself, as long as at the end of the day you deliver X, we're happy campers in that sort of way. But this management by exception concept in Prince, which you don't really see in any Agile, where you just don't see it, to be honest, because we're talking about stages, we're talking about project assurance, we're talking about tolerances, to create these little boundaries so that a team can get on with what they need to get on with, and then they'll flag it up if they're having a problem. Again, tolerances is a big issue, and I'm going to show you something about tolerances in a moment, because it's how you play the tolerances that's really important. One big problem is mappings, and is a Scrum Master a team manager? I think you'll find most people would say no, but one of the reasons for that is the Scrum Master is often seen as a coach, and there is, in Agile teams, everyone is seen as everyone's equal. But as some of you are used to the webinars, in Prince and in PRINCE2, we need to know who's in charge of the team from an accountability and a communication point of view. So there is a mapping here, but again, in the guidance we go through quite carefully that you've got to have someone in charge of the Agile team. And it might be that some people listening to the webinar at this point go, well, I can't use PRINCE2 then. But if you've got 4 or 5 teams, you've got a complicated project, the project manager has to have a point of contact. They have to have someone who's accountable, and that's what the team manager is. It may well be the Scrum Master, but they need someone who's accountable. And importantly, don't misunderstand the word accountable. That doesn't mean blame or somebody who I can wring their neck. It just means who do I deal with? If something goes wrong, who's going to explain to me what's going on? So I consider that to be control and empowering, and this is where very important to get these mappings across. Product owner is another good example of mappings. On a very, very small project, maybe we could use the standard product owner approach that is sort of widespread in Agile, particularly in Scrum. But once you get a complicated structure, it doesn't work. Product owners maybe can exist in the individual delivery teams, but you need some sort of super product owner. Well, this is where senior user comes in PRINCE2. Don't reinvent the wheel. You've already got it. In terms of formality, I mentioned earlier, a PID could be on a wall, it could be in a team room, but again, it depends on the formality and it depends on the context of your project. Your project might be in 3 different continents. Well, you're going to have a trouble sticking something on the wall. I mean, there are ways around it, but a lot of the actual tailoring of Agile is about tailoring of PRINCE2 to Agile is about formality, and some of these areas are the big areas to try and sort out. And again, that's what the guidance is. Now here's a bit of a claim, and this is what the team's been coming up with that's been quite interesting. But if you say project management and you're drawing a diagram and explaining things, you normally find within a few seconds somebody's drawn a triangle. And the funny thing about these triangles is there's loads of them. It's not as if everybody's drawing the same triangle, and trust me, all these 6 triangles are actually different. And people go triangle, 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 constraints, pulling against each other. Yep, fine, I agree with that. But Prince doesn't recognize these triangles anymore. Prince, if you like, is a bit more, and this is just a KRC slide here, so this isn't PRINCE2 Agile, but if you like, you could visualize this more as a hexagon. And the way PRINCE2 and Agile works is it fixes certain things and varies others. And this is where you're using your tolerances and your quality criteria. So time and cost, because it's Agile with time boxing and fixed resources, fix those. You don't want to be going there in the Agile space. And again, you can in PRINCE2, but in PRINCE2 Agile, you switch these off. You fix them, because this is going to keep you honest, and this is going to keep your team sort of stable. We don't want to be throwing resources at a problem. Now if I go right down to the bottom there, and this is the big change, if you like, that's coming out with PRINCE2 Agile, is we've always been taught to vary scope and flex scope, but actually half of scope isn't variable, that's the must-haves, and you know, I don't literally mean half, but some of it is. They're the shoulds and coulds. But we've always been taught that quality is, if you like, non-negotiable. I mean, I've been saying that for ages, but actually it's actually the quality level that's non-negotiable. So in PRINCE2 terms, CQE, customer quality expectations, and acceptance criteria, even then acceptance criteria can be prioritized, but it's actually the quality criteria of individual products that you can vary in the Agile environment. So when you're playing around and trying to hit a time box deadline or trying to hit a stage deadline or a project deadline, the things you play with are the scope and the quality. And when I say the quality, I mean the quality criteria for a product. So if you have, I don't know, a phone and there's some features on it and you're trying to hit a market deadline, maybe you just say, oh, I'm getting rid of that feature. That's de-scoping a feature. But it might be that there's, we did some work with the MOD a while back, and we were dealing with equipment that needed to work in cold temperatures. So what we did was Moscow the quality criteria. So must work at 0 degrees, should work at -10, could work at -20. Now if you're coming to the deadline, you haven't quite hit the sort of -20 degree requirement, maybe we just reduce the quality criteria. But we're not de-scoping anything. We're playing with the quality. Now this might be uncomfortable for some, but what I'm trying to say here is this fix and flex is that some bits are non-negotiable, so there might be a minimum quality criteria defined by the must-haves, which you can't go beyond or it won't work. Now in the middle there, you've got benefits and risk. Risk is a funny one. That's why it's in brackets, because you just take as much risk as you want or you don't want. That's called sort of risk appetite, and really you adjust that to the needs of the project. So there's nothing really to play there. But benefits could be variable, whereby, okay, we were going to make $1 million on this, but we're only going to make 800,000, so maybe that's okay. But even with benefits, there's a fix and flex, as in there's a minimum viable benefit level, sometimes called minimum viable product. So there's something you can't go beyond. So what we're saying with Prince, because Prince sees these 6 tolerances and it refers to them as aspects, there's 6 things you can play with. We're saying don't play with time and cost, please play with quality criteria. That doesn't mean the quality level, and play with scope. That's the normal, if you like, day-to-day thing that you would do on an Agile project, particularly scope, but why not quality criteria as well? As long as you don't go below the must-have, as in, if you like, the definition of a product description that is the minimum, if you like, that you would accept. Beyond that, it does not work. But as I say, whether triangles are, that's history, we'll see. But as I say, PRINCE2 plays with 6, PRINCE2 Agile, if you like, plays with 4, but focuses on those bottom 2, quality criteria and scope. So just to conclude, and if you've got some questions, get them ready, because I was going to do another poll now, but the other one didn't go so well. It's been created by Axelos. The poll I was going to do actually was to say who's heard of Axelos, and normally it's about a third or a quarter have heard of Axelos, but actually Axelos have been around for about a year now. They're the organisation that's commissioned myself to lead the team doing this, and they actually own PRINCE2 now, and part of the Axelos is actually just about half of it is the UK Cabinet Office, and it used to be APMG that did this. Okay, so most people have heard of APMG and what are called the swirl products, things like NSP, MOR, PRINCE2. APMG used to be the guardian, for want of a better word, but now this is all owned by Axelos. Okay, so if you haven't heard of them, look them up on the website. They're, as I say, they're the new owners, for want of a better word, of PRINCE2. Now the actual product we're building at the moment is collaboratively built. As I say, we've got nearly 30 people on the team, and we're going for industry experts, and it's been fantastic, some of the input that we've got from various people. I know we've got a few people actually listening to it on the webinar at the moment as well. It will be examinable. There is an exam. At the moment, we're not sure. At the moment, we think maybe we're just going to aim at the PRINCE2 practitioner market to, if you like, bed it down. But who knows? We'll be market-driven, if you like, on that. And if there seems to be a demand from just everybody to say, look, this product looks pretty good, you know, we want some of it, we're going to respond to, I say we, but Axelos will respond just to be market driven. One quick thing, don't panic, don't sort of retrain all your people into PRINCE2 Agile or think you've got to sweep away all your existing work. What tends to happen is you've got a great big body of Agile knowledge, and you've probably got a great big body of Prince knowledge somewhere. Certainly people who've got it on the CVs, and again, it depends slightly on your organisation. If you're a small startup, you probably haven't got much Prince, but not necessarily. So the main thing is to leverage what you've got. And again, this is planned for release somewhere around spring. I've only heard this secondhand, but somebody pointed out that a LinkedIn group was talking about PRINCE2 and Agile, and they said, well then, PRINCE2 and Agile, that's going to be released on April the 1st then, which in the UK is what's known as April Fool's Day. The joke is it's actually probably very accurate. So it's going to be around about that time, spring. As I say, it's actually evolving at the moment. I've had to take a day off to actually do the webinar because, as I say, things are working as we actually speak. So is it the perfect marriage? I think so. And another quick one for the chat box if you want. What nationality is that airplane? So that comes from one country's Air Force. Which country is it? And it's actually a Eurofighter Typhoon. I think we've got a few people from Boeing listening today, so apologies. This is a European initiative here. And I always use this example that if you want agility, you still need governance and control. If you wanted to buy one of these and go on the website, one of the first things that it's trying to sell to you, one of the first sort of USPs, and they're really proud of this when they're trying to sell it to you, is it's inherently unstable. It's got an unstable air deck. It sort of says that almost in the first paragraph for anyone wanting to buy. I mean, I'm not actually looking to buy one, but it actually says that. And the reason it's unstable is so that it can turn quickly. It can respond. But as I say, and some of the regulars will be familiar with this, if you want to be able to respond to things, that doesn't mean a lack of control. It means you've got the appropriate level of control. It means empower and control, but not command and control. And I think you'll be surprised if you take another look at PRINCE2 2009 edition. You'd be amazed how all things, I don't know, it just, I've been very impressed with what I've seen. So, as I say, remember the John Travolta thing. So, what we're going to do now, I'm going to put a slide up for Claire to read. I'm then going to start looking through the questions and hopefully try and answer as many as I can because we've got just under 10 minutes. So, Claire, I'm going back to you.
Thanks, Keith. So yeah, like you can see on the screen there, we run regular webinars, although like I said in my introduction, they haven't been as regular recently while Keith's been as busy as he is at the moment, but they will resume in the new year. You can find our entire webinar archive on our website there, and like I mentioned again earlier, on our YouTube channel, just look for AgileKRC. KRC help organisations with their transition to Agile, and whatever you need, whether it be consultancy, mentoring, coaching, training, that's both on-site and public courses, we can help you out. We do offer regular public courses in Agile project management, Scrum, SAFe and Kanban, so just go on the website there, the book a course page, and you can find all the information you need. If you want more information about PRINCE2 Agile, feel free to send me an email at the end of the webinar. My email address will come up on the next slide, and just ask me to pop you on our mailing list for PRINCE2 Agile. I promise you won't get emails too often to annoy you, but we will try and keep you up to date with any news about the course and qualification due for release next year. And you can find more information on the Axelos website. There are three blogs now on the Axelos blog section, which you might be interested in reading. Do follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn, and if you do have any questions afterwards, like I say, please feel free to drop us an email. So are we ready for some questions now, Keith? You are still muted.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots, so we'll try and get through as many as I possibly can. Right, so what we'll do, I know some people have timed themselves, so we'll end at 20 past. I might go on till 25 past, that's UK time. So if you want to stay on, feel free, but we will end at 25 past. It's just that I've never seen so many questions, so I'll just try to get as many as I can. What have we got here? I've got Anne has asked a question. How do you calculate cost if the product description is variable? Good question, and what you would do then is work out what I would call a best case scenario, a worst case scenario, and maybe an expected case. And that's not necessarily going to be in the middle, but I would give those three different figures. I think that's a very agile way of working, is to say, in terms of, say, benefit. Actually, I'm talking more about benefit there in terms of that level. But you can actually, in terms of cost then, you can actually talk about time boxing. So it'll be a fixed period of time. Sorry, I'm changing my answer ever so slightly here. If you've got a 6-month piece of work, you can actually estimate how long it's going to take. Maybe we only deliver 90% of what was planned, but we can actually give someone a very accurate, an accurate cost. Sometimes people can throw money at a problem, but don't throw resources and people, because then if you're trying to throw people at a problem to speed things up, it actually can slow things down due to the learning curve. Over a long period of time, people may change in and out of a project. That's absolutely fine. But as I say, don't do any short-term throwing of resources at a problem. So this is why I would say that you can fix cost from the outset in terms of, if you're running it agile. What is the target audience for this training product? From I think that's Jacobus there. And it's mainly aimed at PRINCE2 people to start with. We're going to just see what people think about it, and then sort of go from there. We're getting quite a few questions about DSDM and compatibility there. I think, generally speaking, they're very similar in terms of the space. They're both agile project approaches. If you're running DSDM at the moment, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But they're basically in the same space. They're both agile project management approaches. I think that DSDM over the recently has gone a little bit more sort of upwards into, if you like, governance and project management, and I would, if you like, DSDM maybe should have gone a lot further downwards into technique. So they're even closer than they were, say, back in something like 2007. Would you do both? No, you would not do both. You do one or the other, and I think this is where I'm saying do nothing to start with. You need to see where you are and adjust accordingly. You might, if you're running DSDM or Agile PM, you might look at the PRINCE2 guidance and think there's a few more bits there that you can actually move in. That idea of playing with different tolerances, you might think you might want to make that a lot more sort of visible in terms of how you sort of go forward. What is it like when I'm getting, because I've got so many similar sort of questions here. James, I've got a question from James. How does this fit with things like DSDM, Scrum, DAD, that's the IBM one, and SAFe? It sort of does and it doesn't, because what this is a project approach. And interestingly enough, if you take DAD, which is the IBM one, and SAFe, these are IT approaches. So if you're already scaled up and you're using running projects and you're doing sort of large-scale things, you've probably already got some sort of project structure in place. If you're running everything as BAU, personally I think that's a bit of a risk. I've been doing Agile for a long time now, and I can't see how you're ever going to replace the concept of a project. I know some people argue with that view, and I know some people are getting rid of project managers, but I think once something becomes a bit more complicated, a few more teams than just one team and one product, who's going to pull all this together? Now, I've been to a few Agile places and they rename them as something else, and I don't mind that, but when something's complicated, it's got a deadline, you need to be organized, you need to justify the work. You can call it what you want, but it's called a project, and you need to therefore run it with some project agile framework, like DSDM or like PRINCE2 Agile. So SAFe is very much like conveyor belt stuff, but even then it starts to talk about business cases. So if you're doing SAFe, you could use PRINCE2 Agile for any of your more complicated pieces of work. Scrum very much clips into this at a delivery level, but remember, Scrum doesn't scale up. It's not a project management approach. Never was and never will be. You have to put things around Scrum to get it to work as a project approach. So this is where this is where PRINCE2 Agile can help. It just wraps around your existing Scrum. Joe, can you give some examples of non-IT projects amenable to this approach? At KRC, we probably spend a third or a quarter, maybe a third of our time working on non-IT stuff. Some of the best fun I've had in ages is working with big digital marketing agencies that are making, websites for, big prestige cars, and creating a whole image and brand. And this isn't an IT thing. You create a brand, the messages, the channels, and TV commercials, advertisements on a bus. Oh, and there's a website as well. It's a more holistic view. And this is where I think a lot of people get Agile, get into trouble, because it's come from IT, and it's, look, we can do Agile software. What's your problem? Whereas I think Prince2 is coming at it from a sensible way, saying, I think I need to understand your problem first, and then we'll look how we're going to solve it. The one caveat to that is don't use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Prince2 is for things that are complicated, unique, finite. If you haven't got an end date and it's a small task, that's just called business as usual. Don't use Prince2. But as I say, Prince2 is very much, it's a project framework for projects, and the big question is whether you can see a view that you'll get rid of projects forever. It's not a view that I see. I think I heard that, was it PMI, are predicting a massive rise in project managers, and as Agile gets more complicated, I think you need more project managers. Lionel, question from Lionel, does Prince2 Agile replace Prince2? No, it's just a tailoring, and it's a version of Prince2 that is specifically for an Agile context. The full Prince2 approach, you can use it to build, build a skyscraper, to do anything. The full Prince2 approach is for, you can use it on any project, and we're talking about things that are, extremely large. But remember that what we're trying to do with Prince2 Agile is just configure some of the settings, for example, the tolerances, to work in a sort of an Agile, for an Agile sort of way. Okay. Who else have we got here? Let me think. What have we got here? If using Scrum, I've got a question from Andy. If using Scrum, does the recommended team size stay at around 7? The short answer is yes, because really you're not changing Scrum. You're getting the delivery mechanisms of Scrum. You're plugging it in at the delivery level, and the whole point of Prince2 Agile is not to change what works. If Scrum works at what it does. The problem with Scrum is when they use it on something that it's not supposed to be for. If you go back 5 years ago, you would have found things like Scrum of Scrums been mentioned, in the Scrum guide. But now they've taken that out, because really they realize that if you focus on Scrum strengths and get it to do what it does, which is product delivery, and if you're looking at something like Prince and the MP process, the managing product delivery process, Scrum just clips in there really, really nice. But what Prince2 Agile does is it doesn't say put it in there. It shows you what Scrum is. It talks you through it. So this is why the guidance is a lot more how-to and a lot more detailed, and explaining exactly what you need to do and when. And let's see if I can grab some more. I've never seen too many here. What have we got here? David, can you provide a really pithy 2 to 3 line statement of what Agile is? Yeah, a bit of a problem there. My view of Agile is it's a very broad collection of methods such as Scrum, Kanban, DSDM, techniques such as user stories, planning poker, sort of concepts like varying scope and varying quality, and probably most importantly, and some Agile people will say this is really the heart of Agile, is a set of behaviors. So things like self-organizing, things like being collaborative, and that umbrella term I think encapsulates Agile. But one big thing that the Prince2 Agile guidance goes into is so many people, and having seen the responses to the view of Prince, so many people think that Agile is Scrum and Scrum is Agile. What it isn't. Scrum is an Agile method, fine, it's the most popular, the most well known, but it's just for business as usual. If you want to use it on a project, you have to put things around it, and this is why Agile is quite a big container. And a tip I'd give to all of you is that if you are looking to introduce Agile and go in Agile, certainly in a PRINCE2 context, is you've actually got to define what it is. A good analogy might be fitness. If somebody says, I'm going to get fit, what do you mean by fitness? You know, is that jogging? Does that include what you eat? You know, does that include mental health? What do you mean by fit? And because if you don't know what it is, then you're not going to get there. Right, I'm going to finish now because it looks like I've got a lot of questions to get through. 2 questions that we did ask. The film was called Full Metal Jacket. Some people got similar films there from the same sort of genre. And the plane, Nick Slater got that right. Well done, Nick. It's actually, I think you're the only one that I can see that got it right. It's actually Austrian. So, bit of trivia for you. Hope you've enjoyed the webinar. We're not going to be back before the end of the year. In the UK, a lot of people, festive season is around Christmas, so hopefully everyone has a really good break there. Looking forward to your feedback, and as I say, PRINCE2 Agile, thank you for attending the webinar, and enjoy your weekend. Goodbye.